Hello everybody, welcome back. Today what we will be making is actually from our 2020 May calendar, and what we've been doing with that, if you've been following along, is a drawing a day challenge. Now the other ones I really didn't put a lot of input on my end because I wanted to see what you guys could create, but today this one takes a lot of skill and a lot of technique, so I thought I'd walk you through it. Today's activity includes taking something very tiny and drawing it large. Now what we call this in art isn't just saying drawing something tiny and making it large. It's instead we call it perspective. Now that's a really big word, but we use it a lot in art class and we use it a lot as a visual artist. So what you're going to need first is you're going to need to go find something very tiny, something that you think is interesting. Don't just grab something that just because it's tiny. Pick something that you want to draw that excites you, brings you joy. So some of the items that I chose, maybe you have similar things. So I chose a push pin. I liked this one because I really like that I can see through it. It creates lots of fun shadows and reflections in it. So that's something why I chose it. Something else that I chose was a paper clip. I chose this because I really liked how it's reflective in certain areas but creates a lot of shadow in others, and I can practice filling in my contrast and my shadows when I get to that. And the final thing I grabbed was a small little cootie catcher that one of my students made me last year. And it was one of my students from another school that I worked at, so fortunately it's none of you guys, but I thought it was super cute and it might be really fun because it has all these pointy angles and fun like depth inside it that I could draw and make it larger and make it really cool. Alright, so stay tuned. We're going to learn a little bit about an artist who focuses on perspective, and then we will get to the drawing part. Alright, see you soon. The artist that we're focusing on today is a man named Chuck Close. He's an American artist that focused primarily on portraiture, that of other people and that of himself. Chuck Close not only likes to create portraiture, but he also likes to create his portraits larger than life. He is a man that is 79 years old, and his portraits are throughout the whole United States, as well as in other countries. So when Chuck Close likes to do his portraits, he focuses on the grid, which means he breaks down the image into small spaces and casts that image from the photograph and puts the grid on a larger piece of paper. Later in life, he created more abstract images, as we saw in his self-portrait, focused on organic shapes, as well as organic lines to fill those boxes. This portrait is named Linda, and you can actually find her within the Akron Art Museum in Akron, Ohio. She has many insane details, including the several tendrils of curls within her head. If you look at this image, you can see in both sides that one, it is larger than life in comparison to those two people watching or looking at the portrait, but then you can look at the close-up of the eye and how many details are found within that eye itself. Alright, so what you're going to need is your piece of paper and your small object. I cut my piece of paper into a perfect 6x6 square, meaning that I will be able to fit 9 2-inch squares inside to create a grid. In order to make a grid for my object, I'm going to download an app, and it's called Grid Hashtag. The first thing you'll need to do is take a picture of your small object first so you can upload it into your app. Once you have your picture, you're going to go back into your app. In the top right hand corner, there's a little camera. Click that. It'll open your photos. Pick your image, and you'll see the 6x6 grid that I was talking about. You'll see 9 little squares inside that picture, and that is what you want. That'll be your guideline in order to make the grid on your paper. So to make the grid on your paper, you're going to need a couple more things. You're just going to need your ruler, your piece of paper, and set that small object aside. I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to create 9 perfect squares on the inside. The way I'll do that is I'm going to make each square 2 inches by 2 inches. So I'm marking off 2 inches going up, 2 inches to the side, 2 inches to the bottom. And then once I have those markings, I am going to draw a straight line between them to create the perfect squares that I was talking about. Voila! Now my paper looks like my image with the grid. Now it's time to add that to my camera roll. So as you can see, what you're going to do is you're going to hold the screen. It'll give you an option to save image to camera roll. That's what you'll do so your image doesn't get lost. All right, grab your pencil, put your small image aside, and next we're going to start with each square of the grid. So I started up in the top right for the point, but now I'm working in the middle for the meat of my push pin, and I'm focusing on the shape. Now, if you can see, I created a line going diagonally through that square, and the way I can check that is put the pencil on the image and see how the angle is going, and then mimic that angle on my paper to create the right perspective. So I'm using my eye. It's kind of like you're using hand-eye coordination, just like you would in a video game. And I'm gonna take my pencil again and mark where I think that line should go. Remember to always draw lightly whenever we're doing drawings like this, or any drawing for that matter, because if you mess up, that's okay, but you want to be able to erase it so you can continue on. If you draw too dark, it'll be hard to erase. And just like you, I mess up too, and as you can see, I'm erasing and fixing and adjusting just like you would. So just keep moving on, keep going forward, and I promise you, you'll come out with a wonderful drawing. So as I'm looking at it, I'm getting the final details. I'm going to start adding little shading areas or little areas of shadow and highlight. The highlight is the lighter area and the shadow is the darker area. So right now I'm drawing the shadows underneath it that it casts from the light shining above it. I'm just marking it in. I'm not coloring it in yet. I'm going to do that later whenever I am going in and shading. So once I get going and I got some of the other details like the little bubble and the darker areas, I'm going to start coloring it in. And here we go. Keep watching to see how this ends up turning out. There'll be an image at the end. If you don't have a ruler and if you don't have a phone to download an app, that's okay. You can try your best to draw it to scale, meaning taking something tiny and drawing it large. It's up to you. You don't have to do it my way. This is just a good way to make sure that it becomes more realistic. So if you're looking for that realistic look, do the grid. It's very helpful. It's a good tool. You can almost do it with everything. All right, enjoy the rest of the video. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope that you have a good day.